I believe it is half of college graduates are working high school level jobs.
Wow.
73%, and this is all quoted in my book, 73% of college graduates who start in the workforce under where they should be, like in a high school level job, stay that way for 10 years. Wow. 72% of surveyed employers state that a bachelor's degree is a poor and unreliable way to judge a candidate.
Welcome back to Shifting Schools. Here's a question for you. Have you ever considered how critical manufacturing is to shaping the future workforce? Well, today's episode might just have you rethinking the power of hands-on skills and vocational education. We're diving into some important ideas that will give you plenty to reflect on. First, we'll explore how the decline in CTE, that's career and technical education programs, in schools in the 80s and 90s here in America specifically, has led to a shortage of skilled workers in manufacturing. When we'll talk about the growing opportunity in this field and how modern manufacturing is far from the dirty factory stereotype. It's now high-tech, AI-driven industry. Finally, we'll discuss how educators can help students see manufacturing as a viable and lucrative career path. Our guest today is John Gardner, author of Manufacture Local: How to Make America the Manufacturing Superpower of the World. John's journey from high school dropout to business owner with clients like Lockheed Martin and Ford is inspiring. He'll be sharing insights on how we can equip today's students for tomorrow's workforce by bringing back hands-on, real-world skills into education. But before we jump in, here is a quick word from today's show sponsors. Shifting Schools is excited to be sponsored by newlight.io. Their platform is designed to simplify MTSS frameworks for personalized student support. Built by leading experts, Newlight focuses on getting educators the answers they need fast. Which students need which levels of support? With simple data collection and insightful analytics powered by AI, Newlight's platform provides actionable solutions to support your students effectively. Try it for free at newlight.io. That's NEULIGHT.io. Check the link in the show notes to learn more. Hey folks, FETC, that's the Future of Education Technology Conference, is just around the corner, happening January 14th through 17th, 2025 in Orlando. It's your chance to be part of the first and best EdTech event of the year. As a special offer, just for the Shifting Schools community, you can use promo code SHIFTING10 at checkout for an extra 10% off an all access or session passes. Head to FETC.org to register today, save, and get ready to bring the future of education into your school. That's Shifting10, all caps, Shifting10 at FETC.org for an additional 10% off. Offer ends December 13th. And now, let's dive into this engaging conversation with John Gardner. All right, welcome back to Shifting Schools. Well, I'm so excited. We've already recorded a podcast episode and we didn't click record, John. So at least I clicked record this time and we can get started. Today, I am joined by John Gardner, the author of the book, Manufacture Local: How to Make America the Manufacturing Superpower of the World. And I'll make sure that there's a link to that in the show notes for anybody that wants to go over and check out the book. And you know, one of the things you talk about in the book is as the nation faces the potential of a 2.1 million unfilled manufacturing jobs by 2030, the economic impact could be staggering with an estimated $1 trillion hitting our GDP. And we're going to dig into this and how does education play a massive role in understanding how are we preparing students for their future and not our past. John, welcome to the podcast. As we get started here, can you maybe give listeners just a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm really excited to be a part of the Shifting Schools podcast. And I, from Ohio, my extended family was in Pittsburgh. I grew up kind of around the manufacturing industry, Pittsburgh being a heritage manufacturing town. And my dad was in the industry as a mechanical engineer, tool designer. And I then left home at 18 and I did not finish high school and had a traumatic brain injury. Went out to California to pursue acting. I realized I didn't really like acting because you're standing around a lot. I'm a real kind of like to do stuff and you're waiting on sets to be, shots to be set up and you just kind of stand around for hours. And, I learned a big life lesson that if you pick a career path, then you decide you might not like it and you move on to something else. But there was a moment where felt like a failure, felt like kind of like, what am I going to do now? And I think that proves the point, my life experience, that you should be allowed to try things and fail and move on to the next thing and figure out you like that better. So I decided I want to start my own business because I like to live life at my own tempo. If I work hard, I like to move the rock forward in life. And I felt like with acting, you're waiting on calls, you're waiting on auditions, you're waiting on everything around you to put you in front of the camera. And I don't like waiting. I like taking action. Mm-hmm. And so I felt that starting a business would do that. So I was fortunate enough to somehow, while I was working in restaurants, come across a cutting tool opportunity to design a cutting tool for a friend who worked at a plant. I engaged my dad to help me do this. And long story short is I now have a patented cutting tool that's used in the manufacturing industry on CNC machines. After 20 years, I, have worked with every department of the military, FAA, Lockheed Martin, Ford Motor Companies, big client of mine. But my bread and butter clients are 252,000 machine shops in America. 75% of them are 20 employees or less. And those are my real bread and butter. That's a short little update on me and where I've been. So.
Why did you write the book? What was with what you do? And I love this, right? 250,000 just local manufacturers, small local manufacturers, less than 20 employees. I mean, you probably pass them all the time when you're driving and don't even know. They're all over America. What was it though that made you want to write the book, Manufacture Local, How to Make America the Manufacturing Superpower of the World?
Well, that is such a great question. First of all, the manufacturing industry has been a traditional path to the middle class. It is how so many people in history, in American history, have started off in the manufacturing industry, built their way up, then started their own company. It's what made America help us win World War II. We turned our civil manufacturing might to military manufacturing and allowed us to supply our allies during World War II. The ability to create something and learn how to create something, I think, is a value. The two things are, my whole life, I've felt looked down upon because I was in the manufacturing industry out here in California. You kind of say, oh, I'm in the manufacturing industry. People be like, oh, well, where are you from? You must be from the Midwest. It's like, well, hey, do you even know anything about the industry? To be clear, just as a fact, a Defense Department study says that every dollar invested in the manufacturing industry has a $2.79 return, giving it the highest multiplying effect for an economy of any sector of the American economy, the highest multiplying effect of any economy. So I felt, looked down upon because I was in the industry. People look at it as lowbrow work. They look at it as grease monkey work in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up. And it's kind of, looked down on. And I started to get chip on my shoulder about it, to be quite honest with you. So I wanted to clear up the air that the manufacturing industry is high tech. It's AI, it's interconnectivity. Machines talk to each other. You have to be super high attention to detail, like have a business without having a product. You think, well, I'm a service product. Okay, well, say you're a coffee shop, you provide a service. Well, you have to have a coffee machine and it has to be made by somebody. Preferably it's made in our country so that then American workers make it. But so what I wanted to do is also, as I worked in the industry, I heard so much misunderstanding of the industry by our economists and our academics who just didn't understand the value of manufacturing to a nation's economy and how it makes us independent. We look at COVID when we couldn't get something as simple as a mask from overseas. Yeah. And so I saw that and I wanted to bring respect to the industry and help kids of today see that this is an extremely viable path. It's very financially lucrative. You're learning skill sets. Now is the time to get in and start now, because 10 years from now, you'll carve out a niche for yourself and your skill sets will be irreplaceable. I really wanted to change the perception of the industry. That's why I wrote the book.
I so love that. And I think we talked before we started recording, and I'd love for you to talk about this too. But the keynote that I was doing to school districts to start this school year, I touched on this idea that one of the ways we got ourselves into this is in K-12 education, which is our audience and where we talk here on Shifting Schools, is because of what was coming down from the federal level with No Child Left Behind and A Nation at Risk, is we did away with all these CTE programs or these vocational programs throughout the 80s and 90s. And you and I grew up, we're about the same age. I'm 48.
45.
And so, Yeah. And so we went through our schooling with very little actual, even the ability to interact with wood shop and automotive. Those CT and vocational programs were actually being taken away as we were pushing everybody into 4-year degrees. And now we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have enough workers in manufacturing fields. It is looked down upon. And we have a generation now that is saying, well, wait a minute, there might be another path other than university. Can you kind of talk about how even what we did in K-12 has kind of set us up to be in this situation where we don't have enough manufacturing people and the mindset that we have as America?
Yeah, I talk in my book a lot about putting more on the menu of life for kids, presenting the menu of life to kids. And I think the manufacturing industry needs to be put on there. You look, say, for some of these cities where manufacturing used to be so powerful: Chicago, Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Detroit, St. Louis. And you look at the inner city kids, and we talk about the poverty, but those used to be thriving communities because of the manufacturing industry. And then you look at what those kids are going through in that poverty, and they're not presented, hey, if you just go start working and you keep your nose clean, you don't have to become a professional athlete or be a rapper or join a gang or maybe do super, super well in school while you're living in tough conditions. And maybe you'll get a scholarship. Maybe you'll get a handout. There used to be a whole middle-class pathway presented to kids. And I think when we embraced unilateral free trade and said, hey, we won't tariff anybody at anything, no matter what they tariff us at, then all these jobs left and these communities got devastated as corporations went to seek forced labor overseas and in countries that don't have environmental laws like we do. And that's the bigger picture, which we're not talking about. We're talking about education. But that's why the situation came about, is the politicians did not appreciate the manufacturing industry. And as far as the kids being presented more on the menu of life, I know people view the manufacturing industry as a dark factory, billowing black smoke, and you go in there for 6 days, 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, and you come out and you're covered in soot. And who would want that? But I think the kids today haven't seen the industry of today. It is clean room, air-conditioned facilities. Everything's kept as clean as possible. AI is involved. The machine. I have a 21-year-old guy that's working for me. He's my engineering manager's son. I have him on a machine, 2 machines. I got 2 machines just for him to run. He says he feels like he's working on a spaceship. He sets these machines up all day, and then he sets them up at the end of the day, and they run all night. Wow. They run all night. They're automated. It's robotics, automation, and they're so high tech. And he's very excited to be learning a skill set. He has a measuring device that is $80,000 machine to measure stuff. It can pick up a particle of dust. And he loves this because he can take that skill set, learning how to operate these specific machines, and go to any other company in the world and get a job if I don't treat him right. Yeah. And I think it's good to arm our youth with skill sets that they can take anywhere and have independence if they don't like where they work at. I'm probably getting off the point of your original question. I didn't mean to ramble, but
that's okay. No, it's a great ramble. And I think it's so true that, we have this perception of what the manufacturing industry is and then what's really happening. Educators, are you searching for a new space to connect, collaborate, and grow? Well, Camp Shifting Schools is your new home. With the decline of X, formerly Twitter, we're here to offer a safe, welcoming community where you can join other passionate teachers. Take part in free courses, webinars, and live AMA sessions to evaluate your practice. Ready to join the conversation? Head over to camp.shiftingschools.com and become part of the camp community today. Learning and connecting awaits. I know there was an article not that long ago. The U.S. Navy was looking to build submarines, and we didn't have enough manufacturers in our own country to build our own submarines. And of course, that is not something you want to, output to China or another company to build for you. But we don't actually have the labor here to do the jobs that are sitting here. And to your point, these are well-paying jobs.
We don't even have the shipyard capability to repair our current fleet, is what's coming out now. It's quite frightening, but it creates a big opportunity for today's youth, a really big opportunity. And I think, my dad grew up in a shop class in high school in the 60s in Pittsburgh. And his dad worked at a manufacturing plant in the mailroom, and he noticed that the machinist got a lot of respect, because people knew what they were doing. So my grandpa suggested to my dad that he get in the shop class. So my dad did, and he said he learned everything in shop class the most important things he learned, even after he became a mechanical engineer at Penn State, even after he learned calculus and all that, he said still the most important things he learned were the basics on a lathe, the basic things, squaring up, all that stuff in shop class. And then he got his first job in high school. His shop teacher drove him to a company, I think it was called in Natrona Heights, Pennsylvania, National Torch and Tip, I think might be the name of it. It's in my book. And my dad got his first job arranged by his shop teacher because the shop teacher saw that my dad had potential and would do a good job and had attention to detail. And he went and introduced him to the manager. And I think that's what a lot of the shop teachers and teachers can do when they see a kid. They have relationships in the communities with business owners like myself. They say, hey, this kid's good, or hey, this kid's better with this sort of thing. He's better on computers. Maybe get him into CAD or SolidWorks or CATIA or the different programs. Or hey, this kid's really great with his hands and he's really good at paying attention. And I think the teachers are really at the tip of the spear to source I don't want to call them children, but these teenagers to the type of jobs that are right for them. Anyway, I'm getting on a tangent here, so just cut me off.
No, I think it's great. And I think one of the things that I keep coming back to is we talk in your book, which I encourage people to go out and read, or maybe even bring it into your classroom to read, is this idea of how do educators, say a social studies teacher or an ELA teacher who might be in middle school, high school, elevate these conversations that manufacturing is or all the trades, right? These trades are a legitimate way to make a living. Like it's not, I mean, there's a reason why when I have a problem and I call a plumber, it's $500 an hour for a plumber just to come to my door.
Wasn't that way 20 years ago?
Yeah.
30 years ago, wasn't that way? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question. First of all, I think the manufacturing industry needs to create heroes. Talk about in the sophomore year of high school, we need to talk a lot about, Thomas Edison didn't just start off making car engines and become a gazillionaire. He started off fixing watches as a kid, fixing watches and building steam engines in high school. He would build them on his own. And I think we need heroes of today, not just the Elon Musk and the billionaires and kind of the unattainable, top, 5 people in the world, but just working class heroes. And you look at the marketing art of yesteryear, and that's in my book as I put some of the posters and stuff, and you'll see how the manufacturing industry is built up. There's an image like this man of steel showing a welder and how cool it is to be a welder or an iron worker. And as far as the dollars and how much money kids can make, I write in my book, I was at a vendor of mine in Florida, Coral Gables, Florida, and he was showing me this 19-year-old kid named Brandon. Brandon was running 3 machines. And Steve, my representative at this company, said, Brandon he was 4 months at a technical school. Yeah. And the instructor told me this guy's really good. He's so sharp. He has attention to detail. He wants to learn. He's expanding his skill set. We're mentoring him, and he's excited to be here and do new stuff. Kid made a base salary of $60,000 a year, no college degree. He had health insurance, 401k, but the most important thing that's underrated is he could work all the overtime he wanted. And so the kid was ended up bringing home $80,000 a year in his first year at 19 years old, no college debt, had a kid, another kid on the way. In my book, I write about creating an economic study, a 10-year economic study, seeing which is really truly more lucrative on an average is getting out of school with a skill set, learning the manufacturing industry life path, as I call it, and seeing out how you do with no debt. If you go to college, you come out of college with $50,000 in debt. And then you get an unpaid internship or a low paid internship, because the facts are that I believe it is half of college graduates are working high school level jobs.
Wow.
73%, and this is all quoted in my book, 73% of college graduates who start in the workforce under where they should be, like in a high school level job, stay that way for 10 years. And 72% of surveyed employers state that a bachelor's degree is a poor and unreliable way to judge a candidate. The numbers are coming out that the big push for college is causing some issues in our workforce. And, I liken it to working in a restaurant, because I did that for many years. And I worked every position in a restaurant: dishwasher, busboy, waiter, bartender, service manager. And, if you have 5 head chefs standing around the kitchen, but you got no dishwasher and you got no grill guy and you got no salad prep guy and you got no sous chef, nothing's going to work. And not only that, those chefs might not know the skill sets to do those jobs correctly as they need to be done. And I think big push for college has created a situation where we have all these people who want to be the boss, not enough workers, not enough actual skill sets to do all this. You can only have so much management. Totally going off on a tangent here, so cut me off at any time.
No, I think it's good. And I mean, there's one of the stats that I share with educators is that in a recent survey they did, that 68%, and right on what you're saying, is 68% now of recruiters and those that are in HR are looking at skills over degrees, right? That, to your point, I mean, looking at the same statistics you are, that we're starting to understand that the piece of paper is meaning less and less. And what is meaning more and more is having a skill set that can get you, right? Having that skill set that employers are looking for.
How you get that skill set is to get involved on the job. And so many people want to teach you that. And the educational system at sophomore level, junior level, high school level, and you're an educator, so correct me, is so, in my opinion, absolutely so important to get these kids excited about the manufacturing life path. They need to go do a tour of a high-tech manufacturing facility, and we need to present them like, hey, draw up your part, 3D print a prototype, then machine a prototype out of steel. Look at how this creates a product that you can sell and create economy. Show them all the different pathways, like project engineer, manufacturing industry, CNC programmer, CNC machinist, tool and die guy. There's so many, different avenues, and they just need to be presented to them and get them involved. I think, I talk a lot about helping them understand the past, showing the dirty industry of yesteryear, and reading like The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, and you're seeing how life was, but then going to see a manufacturing facility today and hearing the salaries these guys make. Then you're like, wow, this is awesome, because there's really, really good money to be made. My engineering manager, smartest guy I've ever met, was on a lathe in a shop at age 18 right out of high school. Had 3 kids by the time he was 21. And now he's making, great 6 figures. He taught himself, he said how he climbed the ladder was he wanted to learn every machine in the shop. A lot of guys, people in the manufacturing industry, and they're like, I'm going to do this machine. I'm not going to do any more than that. I'm going to make these parts. That's what I'm going to do for 25 years till I get my pension. And don't go in the manufacturing industry then.
Yeah.
What Shane did, he said, I intentionally learned every machine in the shop. I intentionally asked people to teach me as much as they could. And that tribal knowledge, that village knowledge, that mentorship is really how you can create a real special skill set for yourself that is unique and makes you irreplaceable as an employee and gives you the skill set to start your own company.
And I think there's also this, like, how do we support kids and see, and I almost want like visual, like seeing the pathway, right? You didn't go from, one day not owning a company to now owning a company that works with all of these, Lockheed Martin and every part of the government. Like that doesn't happen that's not one step. And so often we focus, because the news and the media makes us or shows us, we focus on the end result and not all these little steps of, oh, you want to be a restaurant running your own kitchen someday? You need to start being a dishwasher. You start by doing this. I love, and to your point of like needing heroes, the person here in Seattle, the guy that owns our hockey team, the Kraken, started as the security guard at Key Arena.
Wow.
Right. But being a security guard, he was able to see how businesses run. He was able to see how employees were treated. And he just he was a learner, to your point. He was a learner and he upped his game and he continued to grow and he continued to start companies and he learned how to value employees, and all because he was a security guard. And now he owns the hockey team. Right. And so it's this idea of how do we create these pathways for kids so they can say, yeah, straight out of high school, not only are you not going to be $50,000 in debt if you don't go to university, but you could be making $60 an hour. And that's not where it stops, right? But you need to do that job in order to make $80 an hour, in order to make $100 an hour. Like there's a pathway here for you if you're willing to do the work. And so often we jump to the end result of like, how can I be Elon Musk? Well, you can be, but you're going to have to sleep on the shop floor first. Right. You're going to, there's this, and how do we help kids understand the story of progression and not just
that's such a great question. How do we help? And it's funny. I try to teach my own daughter that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And how do you get kids today when everything's so accessible, everything's a click of a button, everything's there. You order on Amazon, you swipe right, you go through how do we get them to understand the progression? That's a really good question. I think one of the great things about the manufacturing industry is working with your hands slows you down. You have
Ooh, I
to pay
love that.
attention to detail, or you can create hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. I have my own, I've hired people. I told you earlier, I hired a bartender. He was a young kid. He's working in a restaurant. He was very
Yeah.
bright, very sharp attention to detail. And I brought him in. I trained him personally myself because he had a desire to learn. And I think if you get these kids off the screens and into the real mechanics of things, they slow down and they start to pay attention to the little details instead of rushing everything so much. I think if they see that progression of, hey, you first draw up a concept and then you 3D print it and then you make it, then you realize why you're manufacturing this real life thing. Not you push a button, you 3D print it out. Here's the manufacturing issues you have and why it costs so much to make. So then you redesign it to be cheaper, still functional, but cheaper. Then you go back through the process and then you make it and you see a part come alive from a lump of steel or a lump of aluminum. And then you see that part put in and implemented in a, like say a go-kart, the school built. And you see that progression hands-on. I think that's a really good way for educators to get kids to start to see the progression. But I think going to the shops and seeing the owners of the shops, owners of the company say, hey, listen, I started off, great story. A mentor of mine, old school guy in his 70s, he owns a 55-man machine shop down here in Southern California. He started off sweeping the shop floor in the 60s. And he said, then I got my tool and die apprenticeship. Then I started learning the machines. And then he's like, I saved up my money and I learned so many machines, I was made the manager. And then I was made the manager and the owner got older. And he didn't want to just shut his business down or sell it to some investment bank. He wanted to pass it on because the thing that my mentor, Chuck, learned, and I've learned from him, he's like, I have 55 families that rely on me. He tried to sell his company and he called me and I said, hey, I thought you were selling your company. He's like, I just realized I have 55 families that rely on me. I don't want to sell them to somebody that I don't know that what's going to happen to the company and their jobs. So you kind of build up this community of people who care about doing a product really, really right and really, really well. And then business comes.
I think I love that. And I think there's so many ways, even within K-12 education, like one of my favorite stories to tell that comes right out of this manufacturing thing is we have these opportunities even within our schools to support kids in this work. I was working with a school district a couple years ago now that, had a very robust CTE program, had an incredible manufacturing setup. And it doesn't have to be this way. But most schools today have 3D printers. Most schools these days have shop classes, whether that's a metal shop, welding class, whatever it happens to be. I was working with this high school though, and they were rewiring the school for like wireless access points. But the bracket that came with the access points, the brackets weren't working for the way that they were attaching them to the ceiling. So instead of going out and going back to the company and paying more money for a specially made bracket, the IT director went to the manufacturing class and said, here's the issue. We have these wireless, access points, and this is where we need them to fit. We need them to be able to attach like this on the ceiling. Can you design something? And the kids were 3D printing out of plastic, were custom made, and they even were able to adjust them based on where they were in the school. Like this one needs to be this wide and this one, to your point. And so the kids became manufacturers and actually supported the school in solving a problem.
That's incredible. I love
And it's everything you're talking about. It's real world problems. It's, getting kids to use their hands and slowing down. I love that. When we use our hands, we slow down, right? The process of thinking slows down. We become detail oriented when we slow down and we use our hands because you have to be. And how do we create space for that in our schools with kids?
Yeah, you bring up like a point of how more and more shop classes are coming about. And I think the next step is to link them with local businesses because, for example, Chuck, my mentor, when he heard the bartender kid I hired had never been in a machine shop in his life, yet he was talking to manufacturing clients and selling my product taught by me. He said, bring him down. He spent the whole day. This guy's busy. Spent the whole day giving my guy a tour and showing him the shop. Because we care, business owners care about passing on that. And I made that comment about overtime and earning money. And the reason why overtime is desirable is if you have a really good employee who pays really good attention, you want them in the football game. Right? It's like football, pull out Tom Brady when things are going, and when when you have machines up and running, you want your top dog guys there. So I'd much rather pay a good employee overtime than have a mediocre employee that I don't really trust. Hey, if he takes his eye off these parts and they get all goofed up, the whole part's scrap. You know what I mean? So if you pay attention to detail and care about the product you're putting out, I liken it to the attention of a jeweler. In my book is, you really have to have very sharp attention to detail. And so that's why you can earn a lot more money, because you make overtime and then you make yourself indispensable. Like nobody can get rid of you. You're there all the time. You're earning a lot of money, and then you become manager, and that's how you climb the ladder. And I think my wife said the manufacturing industry needs like an MTV style music from the 80s, like a Be All You Can Be Army campaign. It's cool again. It's cool. The manufacturing industry is cool. It's going to be cool to be 18, 19 years old, have no debt, have your own vehicle, have your own house, be paying your own house. You're going to get a significant other pretty quick, rather than being in college laying down by debt,
I love this.
Hi, folks. We'll get back to our conversation in just a moment. I want to talk a bit more about newlight.io, the AI FERPA compliant, that's our federal guidelines around privacy of student data, platform making personalized student support a breeze. Student privacy is huge in our schools, and New Light is big on privacy as well. It was one of the first questions I asked the co-founder, Jose, about. There are a few AI systems out there that meet the requirements to being FERPA compliant, and New Light does just that. New Light's IntelliTier platform is more than just a data collection tool. It's an AI-powered assistant that has been trained to truly understand the MTSS framework, student context, and school-specific resources. Developed by a team with both social, emotional, and behavioral needs in mind, and with plans to extend into academic support soon. Studies show effective MTSS and SEL implementations can boost attendance, improve grades, and increase graduation rates. Yet many schools struggle with the complexities of gathering data and turning that data into actionable items within the MTSS process. New Light's IntelliTier platform makes it easy with simple, fast data collection, asynchronous collaboration across the MTSS team, and actionable insight that educators can implement and document their success with. Plus, New Light is advised by seasoned educators and administrators, so they understand your everyday classroom challenges. You have to try it out for yourself. So head over to newlight.io to give it a try for free. That's NEULIGHT.io. Thank you to New Light for taking this on, and a proud sponsor of the Shifting Schools community.
We're talking to John Gardner, author of Manufacturing Local: How to Make America the Manufacturing Superpower of the World. We will make sure there is a link to the book and the rest of your resources in the show notes, John. As we get ready to wrap this up, if there are educators who would love to reach out to you, maybe get you to come in and talk to their kids, maybe you're the superhero, John, that these kids need to hear. What's a good way for people to reach out to you?
JohnGAuthor@gmail.com. It's JOHNG and then author@gmail.com. They can follow me on Twitter or X at John Gardner VOH. So it's John Gardner GARDNER VOH, and my LinkedIn profile is up as well. You just put John Gardner, manufacturer local author.
Awesome.
So Jeff, really appreciate you having me on. I love talking about stuff I'm very, very passionate about. I appreciate you letting me share my thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, and thank you, and thanks for sharing. I mean, this is such a critical thing. And again, as we're moving the manufacturing industry, to your point, and again, please go and buy the book and maybe even share it with some of the kiddos in your classroom. But this is a pathway for kids, and we've got to make it on level playing field with everything else. It really is a pathway for some of our students. We're all about creating pathways to success in schools, and this is just one of those. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, for authoring this book for us. Really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you having such a great resource for schools and education. Thank you, Jeff. Have a good one.
Hey there, dedicated listener. If you've made it this far, we know you're passionate about shifting the way education works. And Tricia and I appreciate you. If you loved what you heard today, we'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to rate and review Shifting Schools wherever you listen to podcasts. Those ratings help us reach even more educators just like you. And if you know someone who could benefit from these conversations, please share this episode with them. Just one person. Think of the impact we can make together. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter for even more great content. And if you haven't already, join us at Camp Shifting Schools, where the conversations keep going long after the podcasts end. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and thank you for being part of Shifting Schools.